Okay, this poem is called Dover Beach. The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. The moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand, glimmering and vast, out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window. Sweet is the night air. Only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land. Listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand. Begin and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Sophocles, long ago, heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled, but now I only hear its melancholy long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. Ah, love, let us be true to one another, for the world, which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. I love that one. Again, that was Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. It's so good. Basically, Dover Beach is in London. It's and it is oh my god. It faces a body of water that separates England and France, and England and France have been at war with each other for centuries. Very lucky the 20th century they were on the same sides of most of the wars, but in almost all previous centuries they weren't. So he's basically looking at it and saying that it's just like, the sea is calm tonight, and let's try to, let's just be true to each other, because it's coming back. It's the just as the shore, as the tide comes in and retreats and comes back, that is all it's happening. It is eroding society, this war, that the war of mankind is going to it will always be coming back. And that's what he's saying at the beginning. The tide is full, the moon lies fair. It's so full of all these beautiful imagery, and that's what art is allowed to exist because of the moments of peace, because of the retreat of the roar itself. But when the roar, when it comes back, things like this, beauty and poetry and everything else in it, aren't possible. So that's what he says. Up the high straits on the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. So basically that kind of thing is that it's here, this joy, this beauty, and this peace, until it isn't. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet as the night air. All of that stuff is peace, It's the water coming back, It's a moment of it's basically what the whole poem exists in, is this moment of peace, but it's not there for long. Only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, and he says, listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand. Begin and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. And then he says Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean. Sophocles, who wrote Oedipus Rex, Antigone, I forget what they call those. There's another one, Oedipus at Colonus. All of those, the Theban plays or something like that. They all take place in the city of Thebes. But that's what he's saying, is that he knew what it was about. That basically we do have this kind of, like, peace is there just as a opposition to war, you know? It's something we can appreciate and enjoy when we have it, but we can't ever count on the fact that it won't be coming back. And he says hearing that of human misery, we find also in the sound of thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. Again, referring to the fact that England and France aren't at war at the time that he's talking about in this poem, 1830 something, whatever it is. So they aren't at war at that, and that's what he's saying, that we find in that sound of thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. Because so often out in that tranquil bay, ships were massacring each other, you know? And there are bodies at the bottom there that will never come up. And then he says, the sea of faith was once too at the full and round earth's shore, lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. Again, that same kind of thing, that the beauty and joy of something that is allowed to exist because of a moment of peace, you know? And a bright girdle furled, it's this, I don't know, there's a kind of magic in the peace, you know, that allows life and love to grow, you know? Mystical, magical, whatever it is exactly. And he says, but now I only hear its melancholy long withdrawing roar. And then he says, retreating to the breath of the night wind. What a great line. To the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. It's just stripped bare. There's nothing else to it. And then he says, love, let us be true to one another. For the world, which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams. That's what we feel as, you know, at our best, you know, living in this present day. We feel the world as before us like a land of dreams, you know? It's got an infinite variety. It's so beautiful, so new. And then he's saying that, in fact, those things that are the wonderful things of life are not all that life is about, because joy is not inherent in life. Love is not inherent in life, nor is light, certitude, or peace, nor help for pain. Those things, the absences of those things, are just as much a part of life as the other things are. And then he says that when we are here as on a darkling plain, that basically life exists wherever we are, you know, in whatever the circumstances. And then he says, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night, that same thing, that same ignorance will happen again. And this was written in the 1800s, very much aware of what was coming in the 20th century, you know? War and war and war. But he does it so perfectly, you know, and that's what this next poem will do as well, is encase that truth of reality, that it's not all good. There's plenty of misery to go around, but not just misery. There's tragedy and death, and how somehow that's also sanctified in some way, you know, that there's something, the truth in that has the truth in that has a kind of it has its own value to it, you know, whether it's the fact that death and suffering make life inherently, or make us aware of its value. Maybe that's, you know, definitely a possibility. But the way he so beautifully is able to do that, you know, and to be honest, at its core, this is a depressing poem, you know. It's But it's not just a depressing poem. It's filled with some of the most beautiful images you could find in any poem. And it's really perfect, there's not a thing you could take away from it. It's so dramatically awesome, it's a really incredible poem. Okay, so let's do this next one. All right, that's all for now.